Mate, it's me, Willie, the TapWyse Ollie. Down under, we've got a cheeky little game called 2 Facts and a Fib. Reckon you can spot the porky? Number 1. Before hitting record, Andrew swore blind that this was a ripper idea and that my true blue Aussie accent would be a smash hit with all you crafty beer professionals on the YouTubes. Number 2. TapWyse makes it dead easy to run your beer club and bring your mates back to the bar with your very own branded brewery app. Monthly subs are a breeze, perks and rewards tick along on autopilot, and the cash lands in your bank account every night, you business legend. Number 3. In the past year, breweries have pulled in nearly 100,000 extra chatroom visits and raked in over $1 million in recurring revenue with apps of their own. Got the fib? Right, mate. Andrew reckoned this was a bugger idea, but joke's on him. I went and did it anyway. So book a demo today and let's show Andrew you're keen on packed tap rooms, steady revenue, and of course me, Willie, the TapWyse Ollie. Cheers, Cobber. Now enough chin wag. Let's get on to the learny bit.
Hi, everybody. All right. I got thrown off by the owl on there for a second. So that is good for a good giggle. Welcome. I'm Julie Rhodes. I will get to who I am here in a second, but hopefully you're tuning in today to learn a little bit more about distribution sales with kind of a spin. I'm hoping that you walk away with some good insights that maybe aren't totally obvious right now. So I'm going to try to make sure I'm managing technology as best as I can. Hi, everybody. I'm Julie Rhodes, and a big thank you to Andrew for having me again at this year's Fall Virtual Conference in 2025. For those that don't know me, I'm located in Broomfield, Colorado. It's right outside of Denver, in between Denver and Boulder. I've been in the food and beverage space, mainly beer, for about 20 plus years now. I'm also pretty deep into the hemp beverage space as well, but I have a background in sales and marketing and distribution management, national account sales, all kinds of good stuff. Lots of data analysis when it comes to wholesale. I'm married into the brewing industry as well. My husband's an old brewer. That's a really old photo, but I really love hanging on to it because my kiddos are teenagers now. And I love that family photo when they were still little bitty. But I have been involved some way, shape, or form, whether it's supplier side sales or regional management or chain business. And then about 7 years ago, I started with my own venture, Not Your Hobby Marketing Solutions. I'm a consultant. I really don't like that word, but I'm a strategic business consultant. I do handle more than marketing, but I can't ditch my name because if you know anything about SEO, people just Google Julie Rhodes marketing and it comes up. So y'all are stuck with Not Your Hobby Marketing Solutions for a while, even though my services expand all business functions now, pretty much, except for back of the house. I let y'all people do your own thing. I do have 2 kiddos as well. Kind of a sci-fi nerd. If you can't tell, if you're looking at the stuff behind me, yes, there's Star Wars stuff. I'm also a baseball nerd, and you can see that as well. So we have a lot to cover today. Let's just jump right into it. Okay, first of all, I kind of like to set the table here a little bit in speaking about, some of the current issues that we're dealing with. This is specifically for a certain group of people right now, and specifically for either folks that are thinking about hiring a distribution sales rep, like a dedicated brand rep in their own staff. It's also for people who are trying to DIY distribution sales themselves. It's for folks that I just picked the random number of 12. You might be wearing 20 plus hats in your own brewery. I have no idea, but maybe you're trying to juggle sales, but you also are doing other things at the same time. It's also for folks that think sales kind of suck right now. I'm not going to beat around the bush around that. When it comes to wholesale, it's not exactly awesome right now. Velocity is down. It's hard to move the needle forward. This is also for folks who don't have a sales plan. I would love for you to have a sales plan, but not everybody thinks that they have time to do that. So if that's non-existent, please stick around, pay attention. If you're not seeing a lot of traction or progress in distribution lately, especially when it comes to velocity or what we call rate of sale or burn rate, has like a million different, but basically what that means is things are just not flying off the shelf or out of the tap as quickly as they used to. We've been seeing this for the past at least like 3 or 4 years now. You don't know where to get started. Just in general, when it comes to selling in the distribution channel, it's a big monster to deal with. A lot of people are afraid of it. So you're going to walk away with something good today. An owner or operator, talking to you folks, you're going to get a little bit of tough love from me today, which is not unusual for me, for those that know me. You say that you have enough time to do sales, but you don't really have enough time to do sales. And we'll talk about how to qualify that later on. You can't afford a traditional full-time dedicated rep. We've got some alternatives that we're going to talk about today. And then also existing sales reps that are watching this, if you never received training and you wish you had, then please stick around because we're going to cover some tips and tricks for you folks as well. And if you need to increase sales, just hang around. Okay, so here's a list of reasons why things are not so awesome right now. By the way, I have multiple screens and I'm presenting and I've got notes and all kinds of things. So if you see me glance off in the distance, it's not because I'm scrolling TikTok or social media or anything. It's because I'm actually referencing information. So there's a lot of things on this slide. I won't elaborate on each one because we don't have that much time today, but know that these are the things that a lot of folks are dealing with when it comes to issues in distribution sales today. And that is the market is crowded. It is super crowded out there. We have a lot of competition. There's limited shelf space. We talked already about velocity being down. That basically means your rate of sale is moving a little slower than it used to. You need to expand. Maybe the tap room is feeling a little stagnant, or for those who might be seeing losses in their tap room and you're looking at distribution or the wholesale channel as a diversified revenue tactic. I am not one of those people that thinks distribution is awful. You just need to do it strategically and make sure that you're actually being profitable about what you're doing in the wholesale channel. You think you have time for sales, but you don't. Again, I'm going to keep saying this because I see this happen. And please know this comes from a place of love, in that I want to try to help people increase their sales and improve their sales programs more. It's not meant to be mean. It's meant to kind of have sort of a wake up call to a harsh reality and then try to figure out how to fix it. We'll try to figure that out today. The distributor that you're working with, if you do have a wholesale partner or partners, might not be keeping your brand top of mind. We'll get to that later. You don't necessarily know how to communicate with retail accounts. I hear a lot of people say, well, I'm not like a natural salesperson. You don't have to be. We're going to talk about soft skills. You have no real system of how to attack the market. And I think this applies to a lot of people that are tuning in today. Your marketing budget is tiny. It's tiny. You have limited resources and you probably have a really lean team. And the biggest one is in blue, by the way. And the old playbook, what it kind of tells us is that if we want to increase sales, we need to hire a full-time sales rep, a full-time dedicated sales rep. But here's this like chicken and egg situation that we get into, is that you need more sales. So you need to hire a rep, but you need to hire a rep to get more sales to afford your sales rep, and round we go. And it feels like an endless hamster wheel. Hence the graphic before this, right? So in the absence of a full-time rep, there is a way that you can gain a competitive edge. And we're going to talk about some of that stuff today. And here it is. I like color coding too. So here you go. We're going to talk about things in 4 big buckets, right? And I'm just calling this the smart sales system because I don't know, that was simple and easy to remember, right? You don't necessarily need a full-time hire or more overhead. Yes, that would be a luxury to have, but a lot of people can't afford that these days. So I wanted to speak to all of you and show you different ways that you can kind of finagle this situation, and know that you don't have to do all of the things that I'm going to talk about today verbatim. Every brand is different. Every operations system is different. Every team is different. So what you need to do is just take all of these things into account and then sort of cherry pick the things that you think apply to your business or your staff the best. But I think the biggest takeaway that I want to impress on you today is that you got to try something different. The way we've been selling beer the past, 3, 5, 7, 8, 10 years is not really working anymore. And we can't keep doing the same things over and over again when we're not finding success. So we got to change things up. And I encourage you to try a variety of different things that we're going to talk about today. But those include a big bucket of what I'm just calling targeted messaging. And this is broken up into different parts. We're going to talk about productivity tools that you can use to kind of like 10x yourself. And yes, this means software. So if you're a technophobe, I'm really sorry to disappoint you. You're going to have to step up the technology and software game here. We're going to speak to creative sales support and what that actually looks like different models and how you can kind of do sales a little bit differently in sort of a digital forward world today. And then we'll talk about automation and then content. Yes, there is crossover into digital marketing. Okay. Oh, let's go backwards here. I do have a video for all of you, by the way. All right. I will let this play so that all of you can watch this. Hopefully it's big enough. There's no sound. Don't worry. It is a couple of guys launching thousands upon thousands of golf balls down a ski ramp. And their purpose of this was to try to show that more doesn't always equal better because not a single golf ball made it in the hole. And what I'm trying to get at for you today is to really pull your attention to knowing your target audience. Before you even walk out the door, before you even address going out into the market, you have got to know exactly who you're trying to sell to. And this is really boring. This is not sexy and flashy like Instagram or, video content or anything like that. It is something that you literally just have to sit down with a piece of paper and start making notes and doing a little bit of homework and a little bit of research, because what you need to realize is where you are finding success in the market. If you don't know where that is, like if you're brand new, right, you have to think about the things and the places that would do best with your certain products. Now, I say that, I want to give you an example. I don't want to give you too obvious an example. I'm not inferring that anybody doesn't know this, but say you have a super, high ABV, barrel-aged, like imperial stout. You probably aren't going to do well with that really high-priced beer item, say in like a dive bar in the middle of the country somewhere that only has like 2 handles and they both belong to macro brands. If you're trying to force that imperial barrel-aged stout, whatever it is, right, at your high price point into a place like that, you're probably not going to do very well. Why? Because you're doing what's called pushing. And we don't want to push our brands onto any place where it might not be a good fit. And when I say a good fit, what I mean by that is that it benefits the end customer that is coming into that account. Whether it's off-premise, like a grocery store or package store. In this case, it would be a bar restaurant with a dive bar, which is on-premise. The goal is to stop pushing your brands on places that might not be a good fit for your particular products. And by the way, this is a mix and match. This is not like blanket. Like you could have a Pilsner that's great for a pizza place, but you could have a stout that's not so great for that same pizza place. So you got to figure out where you're trying to sell, where there is going to be what we call customer pull. You want to create customer demand by offering up things that solve problems. And I know that sounds a little bit wacky, right? We're going to talk about that more in a second. But when you're pushing your brands on retailers and it's not a good fit, that is a bad relationship right off the start. And for as much as I love technology, and we're going to talk a lot about software and technology today, there is still something very special about creating long-term, lasting, profitable relationships with your retailers and your distributor partners that have to be done like in person, and there's an understanding of each other's businesses, right? So I want you to take some time to sit down and define your ideal account, right? It could be, I don't know, like a chicken wing place. It could be a mom and pop wine bar or a cigar club or something. It could be a bowling alley. It could be one of those fancy dine-in movie theaters. But your goal is to kind of figure out these different buckets of what we call classes of trade, or COT for short. and figure out your best potential targets in your whatever footprint you're covering or deciding to go out and cover and where you want to get your products into. Now, the second piece of this is once you have that big kind of dump list, you want to figure out what is important to them. What is important to that buyer or that business owner or the operator of that establishment? Is it the style? Is it the margin? Is it where your product comes from? Is it the quality? Is it the hype and maybe the digital marketing that you've done around it, right? Can you put together a program? You've got to calculate or try to calculate and try to guesstimate what would be most valuable to them, and then figure out how to sell your products in based on what they value most. This is where that problem solving thing comes into play, right? And you want to be able to go in there and not just give them a blanket pitch all the time, but you want to craft like sales conversations that speak to what they actually need and what's important for them, right? And this is another trick that some people do is they create buyer personas. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. For some people, it helps them really visualize like who they're speaking to and what they can offer, but you can have like different personalities for like the different type of buyers that you would potentially speak with. Okay, here's the next thing. Again, not sexy at all and kind of boring, but absolutely important. And here's the other thing is that things like creating a target list or target retail accounts or knowing buyer personas and also getting clear about what makes you different from everybody else is 100% free. It just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of effort and a little bit of focus, right? Again, I try to approach this with like lean teams and lean budgets in mind. So this is not going to cost you anything. The internet is relatively free. It is if you go to a public library. Big supporter of those, by the way. But this is incredibly, incredibly important. And this not just benefits the sales department, but this also benefits your marketing department as well, and even your taproom staff, because when you can be really, really clear and upfront about your brand differentiators, it makes a huge difference. In the sales world, we call these USPs. You might also see this termed as a UVP. It stands for unique selling proposition or unique value proposition. Excuse me. Some people just call these uniques in general. But you need to define and figure out how to clearly state in an efficient way what makes your product or brand stand out from the competition. I'm going to call people out right here again. A little bit of tough love. You cannot use the words well, you can use the words, but you can't just rely on saying that it's craft. That's done. We have thousands upon thousands of craft breweries out there. If that is one of your defining value propositions, you probably need to go back to the drawing board and like expand a little bit further. A great book to get you started, by the way, is Simon Sinek. I think it's called Finding Your Why. And he talks about concentric circles. So like craft would be your big circle. And then you ask yourself, like, so what? Like, who cares? And then you're going further and further where you're drilling down into why craft is actually important for your brand so that you can get more specific and more clear with what defines you and what makes you different and makes you stand out from the crowd, right? The other thing that I want you to stay away from is local. I get that local is fun to say, and I get that people want to support local businesses and local products. That is totally fine. But I want you to go further. Is it local to your region, to your city, to a certain geographic aspect, right? Are you part of the Midwest or the High Plains or, in certain areas where things grow better than others and you specialize in those ingredients? And then that segues into me saying it needs to be things like, are you using certain types of ingredients that are special that you do particularly well for your brewery? You can't just say high quality ingredients because people don't advertise that they use shitty ingredients. Everybody uses high quality ingredients as best as they possibly can, right? So is it a specific type of malt? Do you specialize in a specific type of hops? Is it a certain style that you're really good at brewing? It could also have to do with your ownership structure. Are you woman owned? Are you diversely owned? Things of that sort. Are you a B Corp? Things of that sort, right? Also, It could be, and let me get to my whole like list here. Different things that you're doing. Do you give back to the community in some way? Are you involved with the community? You basically want to outline like 3 to 5 things. Honestly, I usually tell people to stick with 3 because it's really easy and a nice round number. But this could also be you articulating how you're solving certain problems. And when I mentioned this before, I said, the easiest example I can give you is being like a style gap. Like you're filling a style gap for people. Maybe not that many people specialize in like Belgian beers at this point. I have this ridiculous example on the screen because I wanted to show you something very, very specifically. Maybe you specialize in Belgian beer styles specifically for dog lovers. That is super ultra specific, right? If that's your whole shtick, then that's what you need to lean into and talk about and get the word out about it all the time, which leads to number 3, which is enhance your sales collateral. This also goes for your marketing materials, but it's things like you could create a tagline that includes your differentiators that gets those across very easily and efficiently. Think about how you're pitching things. I tell folks, like, if you had to send a text message out about your brand, what would you say to somebody who knows nothing about you? And would they reasonably be able to understand what you do and what you sell in that little tiny text message? You don't get like multiple pages. You just get like that little, like what you would put in like a tweet, which I don't even use Twitter anymore, but that's what you used to say. I think it's like 200 characters or less, right? The other thing is making sure that this is all over your sales sheets. It's on your packaging. It's on your labels. It's on your digital assets. This is part of letting the world know and getting the word out what makes you different and how you stand out from the crowd. Okay, here's another thing. And we're going past branding now. We've done like a little bit of the foundations, right? This one is interesting. And let me just start by saying the reason that we are talking about prospecting and jumping right into this is that no matter what industry you're in, small businesses on average lose about 10% of your customer base every year. It's not because you're doing anything wrong. It's literally just a business cycle, right? So if you aren't constantly prospecting for, in this case, new accounts, right? Because we're talking about distribution sales, you are working at a deficit all the time. So like you're on the hamster wheel, right? And you're always chasing numbers, but you're always going to be behind because you're not adding new business all the time. It's something that needs to be in the back of your brain if you're involved with distribution sales at all. So how can we actually do that? Well, you could drive around in circles, right? And just, physically go into places that look like they could be a good fit, or you could get smart about it and create a target list ahead of time and then do a little bit of homework with like Google Maps, or for anybody who's using like routing software or anything like that, to figure out where you need to visit instead of just doing the old playbook method, which is what we call spray and pray, which is like, I'm just going to spread myself out all over the city and then hope for the best. Not the best use of your time, right? Especially when we're limited. So how can we use technology to help us? We can use things like social media. Why? Because it's free for you to internet stalk people on platforms like Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. Platforms I also use for this are Yelp. Don't laugh. Don't make fun of me. I also use Untapped. I just use Google Maps. I use Apple Maps. I use TripAdvisor. I use Eater. Different online tools, right? What that allows you to do is kind of tippity tap on your keyboard, right? And we're doing like keyword research. You could just put in craft beer near me or liquor store near me into Google Maps and start getting, leads developed, right? Then once you have these big lists of places that you could go to, then you want to go a little bit further with your homework and figure out like, what type of beer selection do they have? Do they have draft or do they not have draft? Do they have a cold box or do they only have a warm shelf? Is it a grocery store? Is it a convenience store? What other products do they have? So this is going to be a lot of homework. But once you get to that point, I don't want you to be afraid to use something like social media to help you start sales conversations. I know that sounds nuts. We're not selling on social media, and I'm not encouraging you to do so. But what I am encouraging you to do is take advantage of platforms like Meta, which is full of small business owners like yourself that pay attention to their business accounts. And if you want to send them a DM and ask them if you can swing by with some samples sometime, that's not a bad idea. You might not get, and don't come at me for saying this, but using this type of prospecting method is kind of like telemarketing. It's just in a different form. We're not making phone calls. You could if you want to. Honestly, you can call places and prospect that way if you want to. It just adds to the bucket of potential accounts that you could go visit. But sending something like a DM and just saying, hey, my name is Julie. I work for so-and-so generic brewery. I represent the whole state. It looks like you guys have a great selection of craft beer on tap. I would love to introduce you to the product. When is a good time to catch you? The deal with this is that you're not always going to get an answer. So don't be sad. We learned that in sales, by the way. There's lots of rejection. You have to get used to it. But it's a great way to start a conversation with somebody. The thing that you want to avoid, though, is doing things that are like open-ended questions. Like, if you're interested, send me a DM back. No, we want to be a little bit more specific with that. All right, I'm going to talk too long about that because I think it's a really creative way to prospect for new business. But the other thing that we can do is, if we have things going on that are cool at the moment with our wholesale department, we can tag retail partners. Now, I say this with a big, giant, fat, bold-faced disclaimer. Every state is different about the rules for this, so you need to check your own state regulatory body to make sure that you can actually tag a retail partner for visibility on social media. Usually what I tell people is that follow the rule of 3. So if you mention 3 retailers or more, you're usually pretty safe, but I would be very cautious if you're just mentioning 1. That is not legal advice, by the way. That's my other disclaimer. Please consult your attorney and also your own regulatory body, state by state, and also look at the TTB website. But those are things that we can do, especially on platforms like LinkedIn, where you kind of want to, I don't know, if you have a cool display program going on, you have a cool promotional program going on, you're proud of it. What that basically does is say like, hey, this is what we're capable of, and this is what we do with retail partners. If you're interested, shoot me an email. I would love to talk to you about it, right? So that's how we kind of use some alternative digital marketing channels to make things happen. All right, the next thing, use a CRM. And I hear you people right now, this is not a tracking device. This is a productivity platform. Okay. You could use a spreadsheet as well, and it would be just as effective. But a lot of people will use like a desktop platform. I recommend one that has a mobile app because salespeople are usually on the go. You're out and about when you're out in the market. There are all different kinds of CRMs for different budget levels. I'm going to have my contact info at the end of this presentation if you want to reach out to me for specific recommendations based on like your learning curve, skill level, like number of people you have, and your budget. But those are the types of things that you need to be looking at when you're picking out a CRM tool, because they vary all over the place. And to be honest with you, a lot of them are not designed for beer sales except for the really expensive ones. So if you want to know the difference, just get a hold of me. But what a CRM actually does is help you stay organized. Honestly, that's the best way I can describe it. It helps you not let things, fall through the cracks, because things will fall through the cracks. I will tell you that right now. It is a digital way for you to track what we call the sales pipeline. So like, did you just meet somebody? Did you drop off samples? Do you need to take them a tap handle? Are they only interested in seasonals? You can save things like buyer preferences, how often they've bought, what they're buying. And again, it doesn't have to be fancy software if you can't afford it. That's totally fine. You could just do this with like a free Google Sheet, right? The way I talk to people about CRMs is basically saying it's like an address book for your retail account on steroids, but it's also combined with a calendar to keep track of your appointments and where you need to go. And it can also help with route planning so that you can map out your sales week, which is really, really helpful when it comes to wholesale. All right. Oh, and some of them even sync up with your email programs because you will lose leads in your inbox, which is scary, and you don't want to miss opportunities. But know that a CRM, for as effective as it is, and it sounds really awesome, it is a new habit that you have to build. So it's not going to happen overnight. You're probably going to need a little bit of wiggle room to get used to actually using one. Okay, here's another one too. Okay, Email. I get tired of people saying, Julie, email marketing is total garbage and it doesn't work. That's because you're not doing it right, or you're sending out shitty emails. I'll just go ahead and say that, right? But email marketing, again, is great for end consumers. It's even more powerful for distribution sales. And when I say create a B2B email flow, that stands for business to business. So we are talking emails that you would send to your distributor partners, but we're mainly talking about emails that are only dedicated for your retail partners. I want you to think about these as less fluffy and more tactical. You do not want to send your general marketing email for your brewery out to retail accounts. They could be interested in that, but they could sign up for that on your website, hopefully, if you have that in place, if they really want to get that much information. But what I'm talking about here is making sure that we're sending tactical messages to retail buyers that has information that they need to make a purchase decision. So if you can't be there in person, and this is why this is a really big competitive advantage for folks with no salespeople, or you're really spread out, you're a team of one, you only have part-time help, whatever it is, right? This can kind of 10x yourself without actually being there in person. Is in-person great? Absolutely. That still applies. But you can't be in 200 places at one time. So you might be able to leverage email to help you sort of double, triple, 10x yourself when you can't be there in person. I also want you to think about using this in a productive way, like time efficient way. With email programs, you can actually build an email in advance and then schedule it to send later. So if you're feeling uber creative, like one day a month, and you decide, okay, I'm going to send this once a month, twice a month, whatever, you can actually build it in advance. And then right before it's scheduled to send, you can go back in, make any small tweaks that you want, but then you can just kind of get it out of the way and not worry about it and move on to something else. The other thing that I want you to consider putting into these things, when I say tactical information, it is things like your sales sheets. But again, there's like an asterisk on this. I do not want you to attach your sales sheets. No one needs an email with 10,000 giant attachments and like JPEGs and PNGs of your price list and all those things that just like clog up people's inboxes. Use a link, like stick it in a Google Drive or Dropbox somewhere and just link to that tactical piece of information or a point of sale materials. Maybe you're providing a poster for people. Maybe you're providing a shelf talker. Maybe you want to link to a sales sheet or a price list or maybe a brand deck. But please link those and include sharing capabilities just as like a viewer. They don't have to be able to edit. You can set those things up now. Just make sure you have the right permission settings, but please don't attach 1,000 files to these emails because buyers will get annoyed and they just won't look at them. I won't look at them and I'm not even a buyer, but they gunk up emails really quickly. And finally, because consent is important, people, and your email address is your personal information. Same goes for your buyers. Give them a way to unsubscribe. I won't go into like the CAN Spam Act and GDPR and all these things, but those laws are put into place for people's privacy. The reason that you don't want to shoot out B2B emails like this from your Gmail inbox or whatever is because you want to get people's permission. So what we have to do is set up some kind of landing page so that people can sign up. What I like to do, because I'm also a big fan of like DIY websites, or if you have a developer, ask them to set up a landing page for you that is for retailer only email signups. It doesn't have to be rocket science. It's a very simple sign up form and it goes to a list that is only B2B customers. What that does is then you can use a program. You can use Squarespace email. You could use Square email. You could use your point of sale email, but it gives you a distribution list that is only going out to your business partners. But when you use an email service provider, it allows them to opt in if they want to, because they don't have to. You're not forcing people in, and it gives them the revolving door to get out whenever they want to, if they don't want to get those from you anymore. And that's the right way to do it, honestly. Okay. The other thing that we can do, believe it or not, is actually set up digital advertising. And again, I take this from the perspective of small business owners and small teams that have very lean budgets. You don't have to have a huge budget to make digital advertising work. For a lot of folks that I work with, honestly, we set up ad budgets that are usually my starting point is like $2 to $5 a day. Are you going to see fireworks from that? No, absolutely not. Of course, the more you can pump into advertising, the more you get the word out about whatever it is that you're selling. But if you need to start small, just start small. The point is to get started, right? So there's a couple of things that I want to go through, and hopefully this doesn't get too much in the weeds, but for intents and purposes of this and like brevity, I'm going to be mainly speaking to like meta ad campaigns or like a Google ad campaign, right? So the big things that I want you to think about with this is that if you can get really good at picking out an objective and get really good with targeting the right people, you can do really, really well with a small budget in digital advertising, honestly, like really well. Those two things, make sure you have the right goal, which is your objective. Whenever you set up an ad, that's like the first thing that they ask you to do. Like, are you selling something? Do you want website traffic? Do you want leads? Make sure that you're picking out the right thing that you want to accomplish. The next thing is that you want to make sure that you're targeting the right people. And yes, you can absolutely target B2B customers. We can do regular ads and target end consumers very easily. B2B is a little bit more challenging. One of my favorite ads that I like to do is actually do like a website traffic campaign, which means we're encouraging people to visit a website, and then we're directing them to a product finder that lives on our brewery website or craft beverage brand website, whatever you're making, whether it's beer, cider, spirits, hemp beverages, whatever it might be, NA stuff. But here's the thing. If you don't have a product finder on your website or somewhere that people can access, and you're selling products in distribution, nobody is going to know where to find your stuff unless you give them a tool to where they can find it, right? And most people immediately think like, oh, this is a very expensive tool. It has to go through a data platform. Yes, you can do that. And when you have enough funds, when you're ready, that is wonderful. If you can use a fancy one, and I'm not going to say the name because I don't want to seem biased, but there are also some really cool, like not free, but very low priced tools. Again, reach out to me and I can give you some recommendations for your budget level, but it's basically what is called like a website widget, and it has a little bit of code, and you just have to embed that code on a page in your website. And usually it's powered by a spreadsheet. So if you can get a spreadsheet together with a list of the places that are selling your products, you can have a product finder on your website. And again, this is a very effective, very low cost tool that is available to most people in our industry. And I like to use digital ads that direct website traffic to the product finder. And then here's the last piece of the puzzle. I said there was only two things I wanted you to focus on. There's actually three, because you need to be able to know how to show what you're selling. If we're directing people to the product finder on our website, we don't want to show them a picture of our tap room because it's not meant for the tap room. It's meant for distribution sales. So something that would be a better fit would be like a 6-pack or a 12-pack, or maybe a can next to the beer in a glass, like a pint glass, something being poured, whatever it is. But we're showing packaged beer or draft beer because that's what we're selling in that channel. And that's the objective or the goal of that ad. There's also different ones that you can do. I put some stuff on here about like geo-targeting that has to do with target audience, right? Like targeting the right people. If you're just selling in like a couple of counties, you can narrow it down to those counties. It doesn't have to be like full bore United States, like global ad. Know that you can narrow it down to like 21 plus because we need to be compliant, right? We also need to geo-target it for wherever you're selling things. You can do some engagement ads if you want to get people to reach out and like send you messages. That's good. Honestly, that feeds the algorithm. That's another great way that you can run things. I get asked all the time about LinkedIn ads. They are very, very expensive. I'm not saying that they aren't effective. They're wonderful because LinkedIn is full of B2B opportunities, but they are very, very, very pricey. So I just want to give everybody a warning about that before you jump into LinkedIn ads. Okay, this is another cool website hack trick. whatever you want to call it. Create a distributor portal. Now, this is not for anybody who's self-distributing, but I kind of had to come from both angles here because I know there's a lot of folks in different places. If you are working with a wholesale partner or a beer distributor, beverage distributor, honestly, I think this is a non-negotiable. This is the best way that you could sort of put some of your everyday sales activities on autopilot. This is like the closest that you're going to get, right? And what it is, I literally just made up this graphic with like a fake distributor portal, but it's some kind of button that lives on your website that wholesalers would be able to click on. And by the way, I want you to password protect this sucker because the general public does not need access to your point of sale materials. But it allows you to kind of house all of those attachments that we talked about earlier. Yeah, you can link to those in your email. You know, what's even better too that complements that is to have a wholesale portal where somebody can get in there and you can include things like your logos, your colors, your fonts, different lifestyle images, social media assets, point of sale tools, sales sheets, anything like that, that your B2B partners would need to have feasibly that would save you time for not having to send out in emails, you know, all crazy like all the time. Again, I try to talk about automations and like what can we automate with just like a simple, I don't know, Google Drive folder that's accessible for your wholesale partners or something like Dropbox. I don't recommend SharePoint. Sorry, all you Microsoft folks out there, don't come after me. The only reason I don't like that is because it gets very like weird about access. So I tend to stick with things like Dropbox or Box or Google Drive. I just really want you to password protect this area on your website so that anybody can't just have access to it all the time. But again, it's a great way to automate some of your assets. Hang on. We have no humidity in Colorado, so I'm like dying when it comes to my voice when I talk this much. Okay, so finally, here's the thing. Communication is your best friend. Hands down. You want to talk about building relationships with retail partners? It is communication. Communication, communication, communication. Here's the deal, though, about communicating with folks is you have to buck up and ask them how they want to be communicated with because it's not up to you. Sales is not about you. It's about other people. And what this does is show empathy. It shows professionalism. And it also shows that person that you're talking to that you actually want to have a quality relationship with them. I've included some non-traditional communication channels on here because a lot of people think like, oh, I have to show up in person every day, every week, like all the time. That's the only way I can move the needle. No, not necessarily. If it's the first time you're going in there, yeah, that's a great way to like make a good first impression. I'm not saying that you never visit your retail accounts because you do need to visit in person, but for those in between times, say you can't get to the southern part of your state right away, see if they're okay with other forms of communication. See if they're okay with text messaging. See if they're all right with, I don't know, maybe they use Slack. Maybe you guys can communicate on Slack or something free like Google Chat. Some people have WhatsApp platforms. Some people use Teams, even though I have issues with that. But that's not always the easiest thing to, but it could be something in an alternative format. Email is another alternative communication channel. Here's the thing. You want to keep it human. Please don't use AI to do this. It feels very, like robotic and corporate, right? You want to make it honest and human. You want to make it clear every time you communicate with somebody what you're trying to do or what you're asking about so that you can set expectations properly. And you want to keep it timely. I don't want you to send a text message to a buyer telling them about your new seasonal and then they respond back and then you don't get back to them until 2 weeks later. No, you just ruined it when you did that, right? So think about how you can communicate with them properly, ask for their preference, note their preferences in your CRM because you're using a CRM, and then use that to your advantage. And here's another thing about asking about communication and getting better at communication is that it's free 99. It doesn't cost you anything except for maybe building a little bit of a new habit and making sure you're reminding yourself to check in with people to see how they want to be communicated with. Okay, next thing. There's more. There's still more. You want to digitize your assets. And I know this seems like a small maybe obvious thing to a lot of people, but it might not be totally obvious to people who are new at sales. I want you to use some type of cloud drive storage, whether it's Google Drive, Dropbox, whatever it is, right? Choose your digital platform, keep everything centralized in one location. That means you have to name things properly instead of just image PNG 45A-C. You need to name it sales sheet, Pilsner, winter 2025. I just made that up. That doesn't make sense. Y'all know what I'm saying, right? So that people can find things easily, right? Think about the format too. I don't necessarily want a JPEG of a sales sheet. If I'm a liquor store buyer, I would rather have a PDF that I can open up on all kinds of devices and it's going to look the same. That's why we use PDFs so often. If you have a deck, please don't put it in PowerPoint. Put it in a PDF format for me so that I can scroll through it easily. You can put a price list in that format, right? But make it easy to read, especially on mobile devices, because everybody checks things on mobiles these days. And then make sure that it's also printable, which is also why I like PDFs as well. All right. So I know I've mentioned like 10 bazillion technology items here. So I wanted to give you a nice little bulleted, I don't know, cheat sheet, whatever you want to call this. I don't know. Suggestions of things that I use or some of my clients use or things that I've used in the past. And either I've used them myself when I was still doing sales, or I suggest these to people that I'm working with, that I'm doing sales training with. So there's some CRMs for you. Again, this is going to depend on whatever your learning curve is that you're chasing, or how many people you have on your team, or your budget. The reason I have that little weird icon in there, I don't know if anybody knows what that is. That is for Blink. That is a digital business card. You don't always need paper. For me, I stuff them in my pocket and then they get all crunchy and then I feel weird handing that to like a professional person. Also, sometimes I'm in a hurry. So what Blink does is that it digitizes your business card and it's a QR code that you can show that buyer and they can scan it and they can instantly add you to their contacts, and then they can send you their contact information. Boom. Right. And then we've automated and then you don't have a stack of like balled up business cards on your desk that you need to feed into your CRM or your address book. Anyways, just small things to help you out here. All right. Cloud assets, cloud storage and asset management. You could also use brand folders, really cool for this, if anybody's using that. Email service providers. Yes, MailChimp is not on there. The one that I am missing is Constant Contact, which is not bad. The reason I suggest Kit, Flowdesk, Klaviyo, however you say that, Brevo, which used to be called something else, and I can't remember, that was recently renamed. But the reason I recommend those is because they're very easy to use. They have really great templates and they have really great tagging and segmenting abilities, which maybe I will come back and talk about email marketing more at some point, Andrew, at like a future session, and we'll talk about why that's important. But basically, you can use the same email platform as what's going out for your consumers. Just make sure that you're tagging all these business contacts as like retail or wholesale or B2B or whatever you want to call it, because again, you don't want those business partners to get your fluffy marketing email unless they really want it, right? So we got to segment those people up. Point of sale material design. I love Canva. I'm a sucker for Canva. I don't get anything for telling you to use it. It is $120 a year. I think the last time I checked for the Pro edition. Just get it. Just do it. It's for those that don't speak Adobe, Photoshop, or Illustrator. It's one of the best tools that you can get. Also, just know that there are some AI capabilities in there. There's potential to print things off of there and get them sent to you. Very competitive in pricing, by the way, to like regular printing, what I've found. And know that when you pay for a tool, you're getting the rights to use the stuff on there. So you can feel better about yourself if you're using artwork that is not your own or that you have borrowed from other people, because those artists are being paid for their work in contributing to that platform. Google Workspace. I can't say that enough. That's free. Claim your business, use all the tools, analytics, the ad platform, Google Drive, all the things. Vistaprint is great too. Nothing wrong with Vistaprint. Just if you're on a budget, it's great. Prospecting and research, those are some of the apps that I use, some of the social media platforms as well for prospecting. Okay, let's reverse it a little bit and say there is no way in heck that you can hire a full-time sales rep. You just can't afford it yet, right? We want one. If you're selling distribution, you need one eventually because there's too many brands out there and you need to have customized support for your business partners. But if you can't add one yet, there are solutions out there. And I love this because this did not exist when I first started doing brewery sales, honestly. So it's really cool to see like the evolution of this like ecosystem. You could have a shared rep. That could be through, I don't know, like a brokerage. There are sales rep services and businesses out there that you could use to use like a shared like fractional rep. You could also just get with your other brewery friends and be like, hey, we don't have competing products. Can we share a rep? That's a possibility. You could like DIY your own sort of system. There are sales rep co-ops out there, those types of businesses, right? You could take advantage of that. You could go through a sales broker. I don't always do this. A lot of the times they're totally remote and they're out of state. But if you're really desperate for something, this is not my first choice, by the way, because it feels kind of impersonal and sometimes they don't always understand our categories. But that is a possibility. You could just hire a brand ambassador, like start with that just to help with like in-store support, like product demos or promotions or different launches, like just like a street team. That's a possibility. Usually those folks are like 1099 contractors, not full-time employees. Contract, fractional, part-time sales help. This is my call to like, I don't know, find a retiree that wants to like have some social activity. There's nothing wrong with that. Like it doesn't have to be a traditional mold that we've usually used for sales these days. And then also there's freelancers out there. Honestly, there's lots of them. Do your homework, check them out, give them goals. This is really important, by the way. If you're going to use these systems, it does not mean that you get to set it and forget it like a crock pot. You have got to give them goals and objectives and have ways to track their performance and their results. You can't just set it to the side. It's like working with a marketing agency. Yes, they are doing things for you, but you have to proactively be involved. You might not be the one out in the market doing the sales, but you're going to have to feed them what you want to do, and you're going to have to feed them the materials that they need. All right. Okay. Which leads me to this. What should I be watching? What do I, okay, I've got beginners and I got advanced. And this is not comprehensive, by the way. There's like hundreds of sales KPIs that you could use for distribution. I didn't want to scare anybody away from metrics because I want you to start simple and I want you to start small. If you're a beginner, I want you to start looking at your placements or your PODs. So it's just points of distribution. I also want you to look at things. You know, I've gone into VIP language here for those that are using it, but they're called did buys. This is the number of buying accounts that you have, like actual retailers. So these two are different, right? A buying account is like Julie's liquor store. A pod would be if I'm buying 4 of your brands, but I'm one business. So that is one did buy, like one buying account, but you have 4 placements in my store. So you have 4 pods in my store. Those are 2 different things and you need to track both. And then finally, if you're doing self-distro, I would say keep tracking by like revenue per retail account. If you're aligned with a wholesaler and you have like the bigger like data platforms, I would start tracking volume and CEs and case equivalents. That's where I would get started. Just those 3 things. That's it. Start small. Just start doing it. Finally, if you're fancy pants and you want to go a little bit further or you're a little bit more advanced, you want to look at things like class of trade or COT, right? We're looking at trends. Like, are you doing better with hotels than restaurants? Are you doing better in grocery stores than package stores? Different things like that. ROS or rate of sale. That's also your velocity, right? Like how fast are things selling? Like how fast are people reordering? That's what that means. Looking at things like lost placements because we don't want to lose opportunities. And then finally looking at something super fancy, which is called commitment ratio, which is this month I made I don't know, 200 account visits and I sold into 100 accounts. That means I have a 50% commitment ratio, but that's something that measures efficacy in distribution sales. All right. And finally, we're going to talk about a playbook to get you started because I don't want you to feel like you can't get started. These are 6 things that I want you people to do over the next 90 days. Oh, my screen went away. Hang on. And I lost my mouse. Hold on, folks. All right. 2 per month. That's it. Over the next 90 days. You have Q4 to figure this out. I want you to sit down and put pen to paper or mouse to laptop, right? And I want you to define your target account profiles and figure out where you want to sell into and who you want to sell to. And then finally, next, I shouldn't say finally, number 2, I want you to update all of your like sales and marketing collateral with your unique value propositions, your unique selling points, right? We need to make sure these are on our sales sheets. They're in our brand story. Maybe they're incorporated on packaging. Please don't redo packaging just because I told you to put your brand story or your tagline on there. That costs a lot of money. Do it when you have the chance to. Number 3, I want you to select a tech stack from all of those tools that I just rattled off. I want you to think about incorporating some of those, doing a little bit of research on price and what fits for your team and what feels right for your team. It might just be you. It might be a team of 1. That's totally fine. I want you to crunch your overhead numbers because I want you to figure out how much you have in your sales budget. Do you have room to hire a full-time rep? Do you need a part-time rep? Can you afford a couple brand ambassadors for a few demos? I just want you to get a grasp on what it actually looks like. You might not have any money to do any of that. So then I want you to look internally and talk to your team members. Does a bartender want some extra hours, right? Do they want to do sales on the side? Can your delivery person do what's called swing sales, which is like, I'm going to act like a sales rep, but I'm not in the market all the time, but I sell things when I'm delivering stuff with a hand truck, right? Also, can the owner pitch in? Can the GM pitch in? Whoever else, does the marketing person want to pitch in? You might have to patchwork together a system. I just want you to get a system and some kind of wireframe in place. Next, I want you to dig into email, B2B email, tactical, not lots of colors. Do not put huge images in these things. Make them easy to read, make them informative, and give them the information they need to make a buying decision by just looking at an email. And then also giving them an easy button to either order from you. If you're doing self-distro, you could just have a button that goes straight to like your ERP system or QuickBooks or wherever you're taking orders. If you're aligned with a wholesaler, the way you do that with a call to action button, because they need to be engaged with your email, folks, that's how it works, is that it could be a click here to shoot me a note and let me know what you want, and I'll relay it to my distributor. Click here to get my distributor information. Click here to, get on a waiting list for a new product that's about to, whatever it is. You can't take orders. Don't circumvent your distributor. You'll just piss them off. Please don't do that. But make it so that people are taking action with those emails that work with the system that you have. And then finally, set up your digital asset hub. I probably should have put this honestly like sooner, but I didn't want to freak you out too much with too much technology. But I want you to create a hub of all of those assets that you have so that it's easy to find. All right. And that is it. I'm very proud of my time management today. I hope y'all know that because I have a tendency, I think a lot of people that know me and know like I'm really long-winded and I like teaching and I could do this all day. So this is me. This is where you can find me. Big thanks again to Andrew. Happy to be here. Please send me your questions. I don't mind questions. Julie at notyourhobbymarketing.com. It's just me and my husband, so it's not going to go anywhere else. That's my @handle for like all the social things. But that special link up in the top is basically my website. And if you just go to /CBP Fall 2025, that is like a digital swag bag, like full of all kinds of good stuff. And that won't like disappear anytime soon. So if you're watching this in hindsight, know that I'll probably keep this up for at least like a year or at least until the next like virtual conference. That's got some goodies in there. It's got a couple cheat sheets. You can reach out to me about if you have questions about stuff, but it's got things in there too. If you think you need some consulting, but don't think you can afford it, I don't know. There's different things on there too. So Okay. I don't see any questions. I think I have like maybe a minute if anybody has questions and wants to pop them in there. But it's totally up to you. You can always reach out to me later and ask some of those questions. Like I mentioned before, things about like tool recommendations, different software platforms or technology solutions that I like to use for folks, depending on your budgets and whatnot. But this has been awesome. And thank you for joining me. And if you're watching a recording of this later on, please don't be afraid to reach out, and please don't be afraid of distribution sales. I know it's hard right now, but we can do it. There's always a workaround. And don't think that you're out of the game just because you don't have a full-time sales rep in place. Not yet. All right. Thank you, Andrew. I will see you all soon, hopefully. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this session, we'd love to see you in real life. We host in-person workshops across the country for craft beer professionals just like you that are held in some of the most exciting beer destinations around. These immersive events are designed to help you grow and connect with others. You'll meet peers from across the country and leave with actionable strategies for success. Connection has never been more important, and you can learn more at cbpconnects.com. Cheers. See you there.